Hope here at Crafty Hope, and welcome to my, well, it's a messy desk. I've had, you can probably tell I've had stuff pushed out to the edges because I wanted to film this real quick. The hostesses of Seek, Gather, Create, as of today, when I'm recording this, is February 2nd. They just announced what our 4 items are for this Mixed Media Scavenger Hunt Challenge, and I'm gonna go ahead and record this so I can start marinating on what's going on. So Seek, Gather, Create is a challenge that takes place on Instagram. Like I said, it comes from 3 hostesses, artists, Lisa Goddard, Laura Dennison, and Tina Hoyce. This iteration of it, the season of it, they are also going to have each week a guest artist. And this week, for week 1, it's Jack Ravi. I'm going to have links to everybody and the Seek, Gather, Create account on Instagram below so you can kind of read more about it. I know they've done giveaways. I haven't even looked that far in to see if they're doing giveaways this time around. But really, it's about seeking out things, gathering them, and creating with them. Seek, Gather, Create. And mixed media, and it's open to any kind of, you want to do art journaling or cards, or what I'm probably going to do is assemblage. But even if you work in other mediums or other types, jump in, have fun, do it. If you want to make, I was considering even doing some jewelry with these prompts, so I might still. I'm thinking about it. So the 4 prompts for this week. Each week it'll be 4 weeks long, and each week they'll have 4 items to seek, gather, and create with. And this, as you can see, week 1, we're to gather a key, something navy blue, an insect, and something rusty. And the hashtag for this is going to be Seek, Gather, Create Feb 2025. So there's kind of my disclaimer. So I want to go through real quick what I have sought out and gathered, so I can kind of get started on it. So key, y'all, I have a massive collection of keys, and that I think has been the hardest thing for me. So I just have a handful of different keys, oh my gosh, that I could use, but I very possibly will go and get something else. I even considered, I've got like stamps that are keys, and also like a key that you would find on like maybe a map or something like that. Could be something you cut out. So it just is a key. This is a very literal interpretation of it. Navy blue. Y'all, I don't have anything that actually has, like, as far as paints and materials, anything that says navy blue on it. So I think this Uncharted Mariner paint from Tim Holtz looks a bit navy bluish. I grabbed my dark blue button sorts. This is some, what do you call it? Like hem facing or something? I don't know. It's some lace, and it's navy blue. But I also went into some of my old books I picked up at estate sales. You can see all the foxing on this. These 2 books definitely have a dark blue or navy blue. Yeah, they are navy blue. So I could possibly take these covers off if I want. I'm leaning into maybe not doing that. So, but it's something I wanted to gather. So for an insect, I just used some excess resin to do some molds and unmolded this. I can see it's like a moth. But I also have a bunch of these like cicada body shells. And then I've got some dragonfly and cicada wings in this little glass jar. I know it's super hard to see. So that is, an insect. And of course, I might even bring in images of butterflies or something like that. And then something rusty. I have so much rusty stuff. But my initial thought was maybe some rusty wire like this. I've got this rusty lid of something that I found in a parking lot. And here's some fabric that I have rust dyed. I also have lots of paper and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I'm headed. I think the first thing I want to do is alter, because I really think I'm going to use this resin mold. So first thing I really want to do is start on it. So I'm going to put all of my other things back here in my little bowl, and I might use this paint. We're going to see how it does. And we're going to, maybe just get started. I want to try to keep it simple and not overthink this too much. I mean, I really think I overthought just gathering stuff. So I'm going to stop talking, start creating, and let's go. I honestly had only a vague notion of what I wanted to do for this project, but I'm super excited about how it turned out. So like I said, I wanted to use that resin moth. That is from a Finnabair mold. I will try to link as many of my supplies as I can below, or at least tell you what they are in case I forget what they are. But I am painting that resin mold with some of the Uncharted Mariner Distress Paint, I think is what it is. And I'm going to put 2 coats. You're only going to get to see me do one because I think you understand painting. And I'll admit, it is kind of still see-through. I could have gessoed it first, but once I put it on a surface that's opaque, like on the paper here, you can't really see through it. It's only when you hold it up through the light that you're going to see that it's still vaguely transparent. No big deal. So I painted this, I dried it, I painted it again, I dried it again. And so while it was kind of finishing up its second coat of drying, you can see, I decided to, and this was the only vague notion I had, was I wanted that moth. I'm talking really fast. Sorry. I wanted that moth, and I could see it taking that wire and creating a frame around it. This is something I really like to do with wire. And I found that this old Heinz jar, I picked this up, this was gifted to me. Apparently these were my dad's old marbles or something. But anyway, I found this Heinz jar was the right circumference for the frame I wanted to make around that moth. My gosh, my words. So I'm going to struggle with this for just a minute before I finally get started. And the reason I'm using this glass jar, for one thing, it's not going to have any give, so it's going to stay fairly consistent in size. And it's sturdy, and and also I can slip it off, so it doesn't have like a lip that comes out at the top or the bottom that's going to prevent me from slipping the wire off. So as you can see, I am wrapping that wire kind of messily. I'm trying to think. I think I picked up this wire at an estate sale forever ago. Yeah. And so anyway, it's probably some kind of fencing wire or whatever. And I really should have worn some gloves because it is really rusty and kind of gross. And my hands get way dirty doing this. But once I get it wrapped and kind of in the shape that I wanted, I'm going to take the ends and wrap them around, just 2 different places around that bundle. So yeah, you can see my hands super dirty. And I'm going to do this no particular way, just kind of wrapping it up. Then I'm going to grab some pliers, and because this is heavy gauge wire and it's really gross, I'm going to use some of my not so great pliers. I'm not using like my really nice jewelry pliers to do this because I don't want to mess them up. And I'm trying to make sure I tuck the ends of the wire somewhere so they don't they're not going to be out and poking. That's pokey wire is one of my I don't want anybody, especially when it's rusty like this. I'm going to make sure those ends are kind of tucked away and hidden from anybody. So all that is done. I've got my keys out, and I'm going to start playing. Now, I'm going to end up using 3 keys. I know the prompt is only a key, but I'm using a key plus 2 more. So, and it's funny. I pulled these 3 out, and almost immediately I was like, yep, this is what I'm going to use. So, and I found that I had this Tim Holtz vignette box that was wide enough and long. It was mostly wide enough for the wire. You can see I squished it down just a little bit. But the big thing is I wanted it long enough to fit this little thing of keys in. So this is pretty much how I want to do this. I mean, but what you're going to see from here on for the rest of the video is how I adhere everything and me fiddling with the arrangement of things and making some decisions. So I did have this rusty wire, and I thought, hey, rusty fabric. And I thought, let's see how that looks. But y'all, that stuff just did not stand out the way I wanted it to stand out. So I put that aside and thought, okay, I'll pull out something else in a little bit. Let me go ahead and start altering this resin piece. So I was feeling like that acrylic paint that was on there was a little bit too bright, and the color itself, the Uncharted Mariner, while it is a dark blue, it's not completely navy. So I wanted to darken it up just a little bit, and I grabbed some other black acrylic paint in a super bristly brush, and I am doing a dry brush. Now I did dampen my brush just a little bit, but I dried it off and then put just a tiny bit of paint on it. And as you can see, I am dry brushing this black over that Uncharted Mariner. So I'm going to get that all done and then come back in with another product that's going to like kind of cover up the black. Like, I don't know that you would ever see the black on this, but to me it helped dull down and darken up that Uncharted Mariner a little bit. So this is, I believe it's aged brass Alchemy wax from Prima Finnabair, whatever. It's Art Alchemy wax, I think. Again, I will link it below. And I'm using my finger to start off to pick up the details on this mold. So there's lots of little details that I really believe the metallics pick up really beautifully. So I'm going over all over the top of it and the edges, and I'm finding that there's a couple spots like in some of the dips below the ridges of the wings that aren't picking up. So I will grab another brush. This one's not quite as bristly, but it is a flat brush, and I'm just going into some of the little creases and areas that my finger couldn't quite get into to get that metallic wax on there. So I'm going to get that on there. And that is about all I'll do to this. Yeah, that's everything I'm going to do to this resin mold. I thought that keeping that blue on there, because that's my navy, I am going to bring navy in a couple different ways here. So I found I had this piece of an old napkin. It's a napkin that I really liked the color of it. I felt like it would stand out, let these other pieces stand out really nicely. So before I tore it down anymore, you can see I'm laying it out, kind of using that edge of the napkin to kind of be like, okay, these are the edges of the box. And you can see there's a little bit of a detail. I don't know what you would call that. It's not really lace around the edges that I liked, and I didn't feel like I needed it all the way around in the box. And since I had those buttons and those other navy bits out, I thought, okay, let me see if I can bring navy in kind of again in here. And I found I had this, I think, y'all, it's actually like a shell or mother of pearl button that's been colored navy. And I found, I'm trying to see if I like it somewhere other than inside the ring. But y'all, it's always going to end up the first place I put it. I liked it right there underneath my moth. And I thought about bringing in this navy lace behind the keys just to give a little more texture. And I'm going to hate it. I'm going to put these keys back down and be like, nope, you lose the detail of the keys there. And I just, did not like it. I also didn't really like that really sharp edge at the top of the lace. So maybe if I figured out some way to tear it, I would have liked it more. But I was like, you know what? That's fine. I'm going to put a button in here. I'm going to be happy. So I'm pulling everything out. I'm going to put it in a little container because, as I mentioned before, my desk was super messy. I was afraid if I put like that button and these things down just anywhere on my desk, I would lose them. So now it's time to tear I wanted to tear the edges of this napkin, but first I have to get over like that hem edge. It was super thick, and I ended up tearing this a little. Well, you'll see. I'm going to tear it down a couple times. So I got that long ways torn, and now I've got to figure out the top, and I'll do the same thing. I'm kind of fitting everything in there, and somehow the corner of this wasn't really square, so I kept fiddling with it. Once I glue it down, I'll get it right. But to lay it out, I was getting real frustrated. So I'm going to lay this out, and I realized that left edge is coming up along the inside of the box. And I just wanted it along the back. I didn't want it to be too fiddly, so I am going to tear it down one last little strip that, y'all, is probably like a centimeter or something. That much. That's all I have to tear down. Just that little bitty bit. And then it is going to be pretty perfect. So yeah, that's going to be my backer. And as I looked at it, I realized I wanted to bring a little bit of blue and detail into it. And I felt like a simple running stitch around the entire outside of this would really help bring that navy into the fabric itself and kind of elevate. I don't know, elevate's maybe not the right word. I just felt like I needed blue on there in some way, but it didn't need to be anything super fussy. So I got some embroidery floss. I'm keeping it at the 6 strands. I put it on a needle, tied a knot in the end, and I'm going to give you just a couple glimpses of me. I'm going to try to do this, like the running stitch like this, and I'll tell you where that hem edge is, where it's thicker. It took me forever to get through it because I tried to do it like I would with slow stitching, and you can see I am fighting it. And I wasn't real happy with those first couple stitches, and I thought, okay, am I going to pull those out and start over? But I said, nope, you know what? This is handmade. All of these stitches, none of them are going to be perfect. None of them are going to be exact. None of them are going to be measured because that's not how I create. So I go forth, continue to do these stitches, and I'm going to go all the way around all 4 sides of this. So I'm going to skip ahead here. You don't need to see me struggle, especially those first 2 edges that were super thick. But here's the last couple stitches, those 2 thinner edges. I had a lot more success getting through the fabric. So once I get to the end, I'm going to pull my needle out and cut the threads out. I'm going to try to separate the threads, y'all, because yeah, these got real tangly, but I'm going to just tie a double knot there and then trim it all down because, yeah, I felt like trying to do any other kind of knot was going to be too fussy, I guess, make it too bulky. I'm going to trim everything there, including my initial knot that I went in. And go ahead and start sticking it in. Now, I have to admit, when I started this project on Sunday, right when the prompts were announced, I thought I was going to be working on this project throughout the week. But I was like, you know what? The sooner I can get this project up and share it with y'all, the happier I'll be. So I worked, I worked not late, but I worked later than I usually do into the evening to get this done. And we're going to get to a point here where I'm going to fret just a little bit about how I'm going to attach everything, because that, we'll get to that in a second. I realized I could stitch that button on there, but it was going to be, if I didn't get it in the exact spot, I was going to be real frustrated with myself for gluing it down. For stitching it on and having to take it off. So I decided instead I was going to do one of my little fake stitches, and I took some of the excess thread fibers from the fabric so it matches the fabric, and tied that on there so that the top of the button has that just a little stitchy thing on the top. So I just went through the buttonholes and then tied it in the top. And so now I'm thinking about what my next steps are going to be, and what I decide my next steps are going to be is glue down that fabric. And I have some Beacon 3-in-1. So it basically smells like the Fabri-Tac stuff, and I decided that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use it. I'm going to start by just doing one edge, that bottom edge. Like I said, I was feeling like this was like a straight edge. So I'm going to put a bunch of that Beacon 3-in-1 along that bottom corner, and then be as careful as I can to lay that in there. And I'm sorry, my head is going to get in the way because I was trying to get right over it to see into the box to make sure the corners lined up just the way I wanted. And the thing about this Beacon 3-in-1 is if you have any kind of like clumps of it anywhere, it would show through the fabric. And I was thinking about that as I was sticking this down, because I knew on those thicker portions, the material, it wasn't going to be a big deal. But on that thinner middle portion, it was. So you can see I'm putting a bunch of this down, and I've got this silicone brush tool. It's for spreading like wood glue and stuff. And I'm trying to work as fast as I can because this glue does dry pretty quickly, but I'm going to use that silicone brush to kind of spread out the glue and then quickly, before everything dries, stick that fabric down and smooth it out really well. So I give this just a few minutes, not even a few minutes. I give it a second to dry because it was really thin, so it didn't need much dry time. And again, I'm going to audition things, start putting stuff in. Here I am thinking about how to attach that wireframe because it is a fiddly surface. There's not a whole lot of surface area to glue it. So I took it to my husband's wood shop, or our wood shop, and to the drill press and drilled 4 holes. Pretty small holes. I think it was 1/16 inch. I think that's right. And I've got this other rusty wire that I think I bought on Amazon. It's labeled as decorative because it's rusty, but I actually use it as wire for projects like this, not in jewelry or anything. But I'm going to use those holes and that thinner gauge rusty wire to secure my rusty wire frame to my box. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't have the ends of this wire outside. I don't want it to be something that somebody touches on the outside of and can get poked. So I'm working, and because I did such a small hole, I knew I could only go through each of those holes twice. So I'm gonna have to wrap it. Yeah, you can see what I'm doing. I came up through those holes, wrapped around, went back through them, and then I'm just going around the wire just a little bit, and I'm gonna make sure that I trim this wire and then again tuck that wire up underneath it so it's not exposed where somebody might get poked, including myself. So I did that top one. I'm going to take that little bit of excess I have. I found that going through the back was a bit easier because the fabric, it was going to be too easy to snag trying to go through the front. And that was the hardest part about using the drill press, is I was real afraid it was going to just rip the fabric. And it did hang once or twice, and I just had to be brave. It was very hard for me to do it because I was like, I should have done this maybe before I put the fabric down. But I decided, some of art is about experimentation and learning what works and what doesn't work. And it was just going to be 4 little holes. So I went for it with the drill press, and I'm really happy I did. So that was awesome. Yeah, you're going to see here, I'm going to do basically a little happy dance when I get these done because it works. And this is super secure as long as the rusty stuff doesn't rust away. So again, I'm trimming these ends down, trying to make sure I get the little pieces up, tucking everything. And again, I'm not using my super good jewelry pliers or snips or anything because this is all rusty stuff. I don't want to use my good stuff on it. There's my little happy, my thumbs up, happy, clappy. It worked. So now I can work on getting everything else in. So I'm going to lay it all out, kind of make sure that it's exactly where I want, and then pull out my E6000 and directly go in gluing things. And this is what I'm going, you can see I'm going to glue both my moth and my button down. Both of these have been altered and are awesome. And what's going to happen is I'm going to look at the keys here in a minute and realize they are not altered except for, the top key is a safety deposit box key that I was gifted, and it's, other than the stamping of the safety deposit box number, it doesn't have much altering. The key in the middle has somebody's stamped the word lock on it, with a metal stamp, and then the bottom one is starting to rust itself. So they're all kind of altered. But this top one to me feels so plain and boring, whereas the bottom 2 have a lot of texture and interest on them. So I'm going to stop here in just a second and be ugh, what do I want to do? And what I decided to do was add some words to this top safety deposit box key. And I'm doing that with these are the rub-ons, or I can't remember, remnants. I can't remember what they're called. They're Tim Holtz rub-ons, basically. And I looked at the words for far too long and finally decided that the words lost and found kind of worked for me, because it's keys and buttons, and I don't know, it just felt like these were found objects that were possibly lost at some point and had been found. So I'm going to just go straight in and put those words right on the end of this key, rub it on using a popsicle stick, and then leave it at that. I thought about adding some gel medium or something on top of it, but I was afraid that would alter the look of the key, like the shininess of it. So I'm just going to leave it. And as long as nobody goes in there and starts scratching on that, it's going to be fine. So I'll use my E6000 also to glue these 3 keys down just as I've got them. And that will finish up, I believe, this assemblage, I think. Yeah, it's going to take me just a minute to get them down. And yeah, super. I tried to keep it simple. I think I told y'all that I wanted this to stay. Oh yeah, I'm going to futz with this key for a minute, trying to decide which way up I wanted it to be before I'm like, no, the way I had it was fine, because it says, it's got the word I told you stamped on it that says lock, and I kind of wanted that there. So that's what took me there. Oh, and then an actual insect flew on to my cloth there, a little gnat that got in there, and I ended up messing up a little bit. You can see that little black smudge there, and I had to come in and clean it up. So I got an actual live insect on this assemblage, and I kept that in there because I was like, I think that's really funny. Anyway, so that's it. I hope that you are playing along with Seek, Gather, Create. Please let me know if you are, so I can go find you, or you can, let me know where you're going to have yours. Go check out all the hostesses and the guest artist and play. This is such a fun challenge. It always inspires me so much, and I hope it inspires you too. Thanks so much for spending this time with me, and I will see y'all soon with more art and life updates. Thanks for watching. Bye.